checking on a couple of windows here. Okay, it does not automatically start on there. That one's waiting. Where's my other page at? I don't know if it's going to automatically kick it. We're going to find out in a minute if my... Yeah, I've tried putting a live stream over into my Patreon page as well. I'm just going to see how that works out, if it does, or if it's a little squirrel. I don't know. Don't know if it's going to work automatically like I think it's supposed to. 20-second countdown. Oh, I can do some other stuff in the meantime. Let's get that Twitter out. Get that tweet out, yeah. Get that Xbox app post out. But oh, Gotham Gotcha looks like he's doing one of his one of his talk shows there. The topic is space is amazing. Yes, it is. It is very amazing. Okay, let's end that. Let's hop into our Discord here. We're gonna let a few channels know what is up. We're gonna let a few channels know what is up. Okay, now let's see. Do I need to refresh the page? Okay, I do. Okay, it does have to refresh, and it does say live now, popping right up to the top. Okay, that's good to know. That is good to know. Did it do the same on this page? Let's refresh this page. Oh, I hear a Shadowtronics. How's Shadowtronics doing today? Hope you're doing well, man. Okay, I do. Okay, it does have to refresh, and it does say live now. All right, right up to the top. Okay, that's good to know. That is good to know. Is that tab? Yes, that is. Okay, so that's my. Okay, all right, and this one here. That is a live window, but I think I guess I'd have to press play on that, maybe. And if I click play, yeah. Nice. Okay, right. Okay, cool. I'm very happy with that. Very happy with that. Okay, nice. Okay, minimize that window. It looks a little squirrely on the YouTube, so that's okay. I don't care. And here we go. Let's refresh this window. Oh, boy. Okay, my main monitor window now. Good gracious. You're doing better. Well, that's good to hear, Shadowtronics. Very good to hear. I'm glad you are here with us. And could have used you last night, that's for sure. Ooh, boy, oh boy. We had a live one yesterday. I'm gonna blame it all on the Fortnite. That's the easiest way to do it, I think. Why is there's a Swedish... Well, why did they do that there? I don't know. There we go. The House of Spartans. Nice, I like that. I think I got a little frog in my throat. That's okay. It's all good. It's all good, baby. Into the Arconaut self-promotion channel. There we go. Whee! It's going to be a great day today. An excellent day. Man. I think I've got caught up. Live stream. Just in perfect timing as well. Perfect timing. Wow. Oh, Robert Conrad died. Oh, no. All right. Yeah, he's a very well-known actor. Very well-known actor. Not like me. He's actually legit. Yeah, hey, but at 84, you've had a good run. You had a good run. Not as good a run as Kirk Douglas, though. That maniac made it to 103. Good lord. 7 years short of the Phantom of the Opera book, which we are reading. That's 110 years old. Not too shabby. Chris Alberti is tweeting out our stream. And Chris Alberti does that because he is the best. He is the best. Best at social media, best at twittering, tweeting. He's probably on Facebook too, though I don't spend a lot of time on that, if any at all. Hey, Legiazone was shaken. Man, oh man. The Devil Shock Caller, yes, yesterday was, ooh, man. Yeah, and I think a lot of people need to work on their privacy settings too. Yeah, we had, well, I mean, we do what we normally do on Saturday, which is, you know, we invite, you know, friends of the stream and come play with us for a while. You know, 45 minutes an hour, you know, get someone new in there, and we ended up having three Mixer accounts and one Xbox account just flat out banned for stalking, harassment, and murder threats. Yeah, it was not a good start to yesterday at all. So, by the way, that's a very good way to lose your accounts, is threaten to murder people. I just want to put that out there. That's, yeah, there's no coming back from that. so don't. Just don't do that. Yeah, alrighty. Oh, yeah, they did. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. Followed up on those bad boys. Did yours never work? Oh, boy. Okay. No, you report them on the actual text that they send in. And, I mean, if it's as on its face as it is, then, boom, they're out of there. The same happened to you. Yeah, anyway. And so here's another problematic thing we had happening as well. I set my parties to invite only. Because, you know, I don't want just the random people coming in and causing trouble. Some of the people that we had in our party were either friends of or friends of friends of one of these harassers, and that they were able to join in on the party off of them to continue harassing. So, of course, I had to boot those two people out of party chat, even though they are still in the game with us. And then they were kind of upset that they wouldn't let them back in the party. But tighten up your settings, people. Tighten up your settings. Yeah, alrighty. There we go. How do I know? You can go to their accounts and just look at them. So yeah, and their like the big thing comes up. So yeah, you literally just look them up, and yeah. So where are we at? Okay, I'm drinking coffee. That's where I'm at. Alrighty. But the day got better after that. Man, it was good. Yeah. So we did the Fortnite, then we did some Forza Horizon 4, then we did Paladins. Oh, and then we had the Rocket League, and our Rocket League tournament, and only it was supposed to be 3 versus 3, and I could only find 4 people. Only 4 people showed up for it. So thank you for showing up. But yeah, we did not have enough people to get our 3v3 on. And normally I'd just be I just invite randos from the stream, come on in. Hey, who wants to win these Game Pass Ultimate things here in a little spontaneous tournament? But yeah, after the squirrely way in which the stream started off, I was in no mood to be inviting randos in for that. Yeah, well, yeah. Oh, yeah, I got a serious side. It takes a lot to get on my bad side. Like a lot. But yeah, there are some things, there are some lines you do not cross. So, yeah, but yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah, I don't know. It wasn't going to, yeah, no, I mean, I had 3 gift cards to give away, so it was like, it basically had to be 3v3. Alrighty. Anyway, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's neither, and it ended up on an amazing note, by the way. Vikings for the win, and he's a streamer here on Mixer. He spent all day doing Sea of Thieves, then came by and just like threw embers at me like all night long. 50 embers at a time, I'll take them. But yeah, some of them with questions in them and the like about streaming and the like. Oh, I mean, you don't have to throw embers at me to ask me about streaming. But I mean, I won't stop you if you do. But I'm always happy to give people my opinions on what makes a good stream. And my here we go. Just do what you want to do.
50 embers with the message Halo Scrub.
Halo Scrub. There's no message on that. What? That was a perfect opportunity to tell me to get on with it. But that's why you're all here. Yeah. So well, we still got a couple of minutes. So we still got a couple of minutes. My little monitor window keeps freezing here. Okay. I'm going to send in a video report real fast here, and there we go. Okay. So yeah, play the games that you have fun playing. There you go. You're welcome. That's how you have a good stream. All right. Oh, you only have 50 left, so you're saving it for a special occasion? Ah, okay. But you do know, by the way, that the last Tuesday, I think it was, they reduced the price of embers permanently to that December sale prices that they had going on. If you buy them on PC or console. Now, you can buy them now once again, you can buy them via the mobile app, but the prices are not so good because the App Store takes 30% off the top. So if you buy, it's just not workable for something like that on mobile apps. Apparently, I mean, Mixer's got to stay in business too. So, yeah. Apparently, I was mistaken on that. I thought they were going to be the same, but they are not. But what you can do, I mean, if you're doing it on your mobile, you can just log into your account on your phone's web browser. You just pull them out that way instead of like officially through the app. Yeah. But yeah, so apparently that's how people get the good prices on their mobile phones, just logging into your Mixer account via your web browser instead of the actual official app, which is a bit of a peter, but you know. App Store is going to App Store. Yeah. Okay. I don't think we have anything else to talk about before we're getting into this. Oh, yes, we do. Yeah, at the end of the stream, we'll go over the creative writing thing we have going on here. The Edgar Allan Poe experiment. You get some free Google credit. That's why you spend it there. Well, yeah, well. But yeah, you know, I get the Xbox, Microsoft credits for using Bing, basically. So, yeah. So we do have that creative writing thing going on, the Edgar Allan Poe experiment. The deadline for that, or the showtime, basically, is 2 weeks from today, Sunday, February 23rd. And whatever you have, if you have taken up the task of continuing and completing the unfinished story, The Lighthouse by Edgar Allan Poe, I will read what you have come up with. While art by Galen, very talented artist here on Mixer, speed sketches, all the action. I'm reading it, he's drawing it, it's going to be awesome. And then later on I'll record a copy, like a complete copy of the entire thing in my studio, to send you, so you can have like a little mini audiobook of your own. The Lighthouse by Edgar Allan Poe and you. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. Like a lot of fun. Yeah, so after we finish this story, what we're reading today, this story that we gonna be getting into any second now, Reanimator. Herbert West, Reanimator by H.P. Lovecraft. Yeah, after we're done with that, we'll go over some of the details and we'll read the story again, just in case anyone's like, what's this creative writing thing that's going on? I want to learn a little more. Yeah, okay, we'll go over everything at the end of the stream. Alrighty. So we should get on with it. Yeah, we should. Let's do it. Let's move on over to here. Herbert West, Reanimator. I'm still trying to get these. Oh, that looks a little small. I know. We'll see how it works out. Might make that a little larger in the top right over there. And I still need to figure out a way for those stickers to only show up for like 1,000 points or sparks or more. I'm trying to declutter the thing a bit. There we go. Ooh, I got an auto host from Boxing Tom. Do I know Boxing Tom? Not off the top of my head. Hello, Boxing Tom and friends. I'm gonna have to find out more about this Boxing Tom. I have to look him up a little later. Let me throw him a quick follow while I'm at it. One second. I have no idea who they are. All right. It's nice to meet you, though. Very nice to meet you. Okay, so let's should we do it? Should we keep waffling a little more, or should we get on with it? You reckon? That guy looks like it looks like me. Kind of. Except he made more money than I ever did. That's for sure. Robert Conrad. Alrighty. I think we're good. Let's do it. I'm gonna have a little sip of the old coffee here, and we probably should move on with it. Oh yeah. So if anyone has any more great feedback ideas for Mixer, by the way, yeah, it's always a good idea. Let them know. Let them know on Twitter. Let them know on the Contact Us on the bottom of your webpage, or on I'm sure there's a Contact Us button in the app as well. I'm sure there is. But yeah, let them know the things you would like to see, improvements they could make. And I mean, as we saw with the price of embers there, it just needed enough people to tell them to buckle on down and do it, and all of a sudden they did it. And that's how companies respond. They respond by doing what enough people tell them to do. Most times. So here we go. Let's do it. I see some lovely hosts. I thank you for those. I'm gonna make that thing in the top right corner a little bigger, just real fast. One second, because it's kind of small. And then we'll get on with it. Okay, and hopefully that'll be okay and not overlap too much of the. Oh, Lady Magritte's in the house. Oh, she was playing a it reminded me of Gone Home, except it looked like a lot spookier, a lot scarier. I forgot the name of that. I forgot the name of it. It was called like Home Sweet Home or something. But yeah, it reminded me very much of Gone Home, like the original walking simulator. And except spookier. Okay, let's do it. Okay, we're reading. That's why you came here. Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, one final thing. I just need to okay, I'm gonna I can't for the life of me figure out how to do a how to get my chat to echo now back from YouTube. Yeah, because my book stuff, I'm going to keep sending that into over to YouTube. Grow a little bigger over there. That's the plan. So I got to keep an eye on my chat over there and here. Let me actually move that over that side. That's probably a better one. Okay, let's do it. Herbert West, Reanimator. 1. From the Dark. Of Herbert West, who was my friend in college and in afterlife, I can speak only with extreme terror. This terror is not due altogether to the sinister manner of his recent disappearance, but was engendered by the whole nature of his life work, and first gained its acute form more than 17 years ago, when we were in the 3rd year of our course at the Miskatonic University Medical School in Arkham. While he was with me, the wonder and diabolism of his experiments fascinated me utterly, and I was his closest companion. Now that he is gone, and the spell is broken, the actual fear is greater. Memories and possibilities are ever more hideous than realities. The first horrible incident of our acquaintance was the greatest shock I ever experienced, and it is only with reluctance that I repeat it. As I have said, it happened when we were in medical school, where West had already made himself notorious through his wild theories on the nature of death, and the possibility of overcoming it artificially. His views, which were widely ridiculed by the faculty and his fellow students, hinged on the essentially mechanistic nature of life. and concerned means for operating the organic machinery of mankind by calculated chemical action after the failure of natural processes. In his experiments with various animating solutions, he had killed and treated immense numbers of rabbits, guinea pigs, cats, dogs, and monkeys, till he had become the prime nuisance of the college. Several times he had actually obtained signs of life in animals supposedly dead. In many cases, violent signs. But he soon saw that the perfection of this process, if indeed possible, would necessarily involve a lifetime of research. It likewise became clear that, since the same solution never worked alike on different organic species, he would require human subjects for further and more specialized progress. It was here that he first came into conflict with the college authorities, and was debarred from future experiments by no less a dignitary than the dean of the medical school himself, the learned and benevolent Dr. Allen Halsey, whose work in behalf of the stricken is recalled by every old resident of Arkham. I wonder if Halo's Dr. Halsey is named after this one. A little nod to that. Don't know. I had always been exceptionally tolerant of West's pursuits, and we frequently discussed his theories, whose ramifications and corollaries were almost infinite. Holding with Haeckel that all life is a chemical and physical process, and that the so-called soul is a myth. My friend believed that artificial reanimation of the dead can depend only on the condition of the tissues, and that unless actual decomposition has set in, a corpse fully equipped with organs may, with suitable measures, be set going again in the peculiar fashion known as life. That the psychic or intellectual life might be impaired by the slight deterioration of sensitive brain cells, which even a short period of death would be apt to cause, West fully realized. It had at first been his hope to find a reagent which would restore vitality before the actual advent of death, and only repeated failures on animals had shown him that the natural and artificial life motions were incompatible. Hey there, Chris Alberti. Good to see you, man. Yeah. By the way, Chris Alberti was one of the fine people who did show up for the Rocket League tournament. Once again, sorry, Chris, but we just didn't have enough to get a single round of 3v3 going. Yeah, so we'll come up with something soon, very soon. West then sought extreme freshness in his specimens, injecting his solutions into the blood immediately after the extinction of life. It was this circumstance which made the professors so carelessly skeptical, for they felt that true death had not occurred in any case. They did not stop to view the matter closely and reasoningly. It was not long after the faculty had interdicted his work that West confided to me his resolution to get fresh human bodies in some manner, and continue in secret the experiments he could no longer perform openly. To hear him discussing ways and means was rather ghastly, for at the college we had never procured anatomical specimens ourselves. Whenever the morgue proved inadequate, 2 local Negroes attended to this matter, and they were seldom questioned. West was then a small, slender, spectacled youth with delicate features, yellow hair, pale blue eyes, and a soft voice, and it was uncanny to hear him dwelling on the relative merits of Christchurch Cemetery and the Potter's Field. We finally decided on the Potter's Field because practically everybody in Christchurch was embalmed, a thing, of course, ruinous to West's researches. I was by this time his active and enthralled assistant, and helped him make all his decisions, not only concerning the source of bodies, but concerning a suitable place for our loathsome work. It was I who thought of the deserted Chapman farmhouse beyond Meadow Hill, where we fitted up on the ground floor an operating room and a laboratory, each with dark curtains to conceal our midnight doings. The place was far from any road, and in sight of no other house. Yet precautions were none the less necessary, since rumors of strange lights, started by chance nocturnal roamers, would soon bring disaster on our enterprise. It was agreed to call the whole thing a chemical laboratory, if discovery should occur. Gradually, we equipped our sinister haunt of science with materials either purchased in Boston or quietly borrowed from the college, materials carefully made unrecognizable save to expert eyes, and provided spades and picks for many burials we should have to make in the cellar. This is starting off pretty fast. Yeah, no punches being pulled right now. Straight in there. It's all about the dead bodies. I like it. I'm a fan. Give me them corpses. At the college, we used an incinerator, but the apparatus was too costly for our unauthorized laboratory. Bodies were always a nuisance, even the small guinea pig bodies from the slightest clandestine experiments in West's room at the boarding house. We followed the local death notices like ghouls, for our specimens demanded particular qualities. What we wanted were corpses interred soon after death and without artificial preservation, preferably free from malforming disease, and certainly with all organs present. Favorably free from malforming disease and... Oh, no, I've already read that. Accident victims were our best hope. Not for many weeks did we hear of anything suitable, though we talked with morgue and hospital authorities, ostensibly in the college's interest, as often as we could, without exciting suspicion. We found that the college had first choice in every case, so that it might be necessary to remain in Arkham during the summer, when only the limited summer school classes were held. In the end, though, luck favored us. For one day we heard of an almost ideal case in the Potter's Field, a brawny young workman drowned only the morning before in Sumner's Pond, and buried at the town's expense without delay or embalming. That afternoon we found the new grave, and determined to begin work soon after midnight. It was a repulsive task that we undertook in the black small hours, even though we lacked at that time the special horror of graveyards which later experiences brought to us. We carried spades and oil-dark lanterns, for although electric torches were then manufactured, they were not as satisfactory as the tungsten contrivances of today. The process of unearthing was slow and sordid. It might have been gruesomely poetical if we had been artists instead of scientists, and we were glad when our spades struck wood. When the pine box was fully uncovered, West scrambled down and removed the lid, dragging out and propping up the contents. I reached down and hauled the contents out of the grave, and then both toiled hard to restore the spot to its former appearance. The affair made us rather nervous, especially the stiff form and vacant face of our first trophy, but we managed to remove all traces of our visit. When we had patted down the last shovelful of earth, we put the specimen in a canvas sack and set out for the old Chapman place beyond Meadow Hill. On an improvised dissecting table in the old farmhouse, by the light of a powerful acetylene lamp, the specimen was not very spectral-looking. It had been a sturdy and apparently unimaginative youth of wholesome plebeian type, large-framed, gray-eyed, and brown-haired, a sound animal without psychological subtleties, and probably having vital processes of the simplest and healthiest sort. Now, with the eyes closed, It looked more asleep than dead, though the expert test of my friend soon left no doubt on that score. We had at last what West had always longed for, a real dead man of the ideal kind, ready for the solution as prepared according to the most careful calculations and theories for human use. The tension on our part became very great. We knew that there was scarcely a chance for anything like complete success, and could not avoid hideous fears at possible grotesque results of partial animation. Especially were we apprehensive concerning the mind and impulses of the creature, since in the space following death, some of the more delicate cerebral cells might well have suffered deterioration. I myself still held some curious notions about the traditional soul of man, and felt an awe at the secrets that might be told by one returning from the dead. I wondered what sights this placid youth might have seen in inaccessible spheres, and what he could relate if fully restored to life. But my wonder was not overwhelming, since for the most part I shared the materialism of my friend. He was calmer than I as he forced a large quantity of his fluid into a vein of the body's arm, immediately binding the incision securely. Getting right on into it. The waiting was gruesome, but West never faltered. Every now and then he applied his stethoscope to the specimen and bore the negative results philosophically. After about 3/4 of an hour, without the least sign of life, he disappointedly pronounced the solution inadequate, but determined to make the most of his opportunity and try one change in the formula before disposing of his ghastly prize. We had that afternoon dug a grave in the cellar, and would have to fill it by dawn, for although we had fixed a lock on the house, we wished to shun even the remotest risk of a ghoulish discovery. Subtolish birch. So taking the solitary acetylene lamp into the adjacent laboratory, we left our silent guest on the slab in the dark and bent every energy to the mixing of a new solution, the weighing and measuring supervised by West with an almost fanatical care. The awful event was very sudden and wholly unexpected. I was pouring something from one test tube to another, and West was busy over the alcohol blast lamp, which had to answer for a Bunsen burner in this gasless edifice, when from the pitch-black room we left there burst the most appalling and demoniac succession of cries that either of us had ever heard. No more unutterable could have been the chaos of hellish sound if the pit itself had opened to release the agony of the damned. For in one inconceivable cacophony was centered all the supernatural terror and unnatural despair of animate nature. Human it could not have been. It is not in man to make such sounds. And without a thought of our late employment or its possible discovery, both West and I leaped to the nearest window like stricken animals, overturning tubes, lamp and retorts, and vaulting madly into the starred abyss of the rural night. I think we screamed ourselves as we stumbled frantically toward the town, though as we reached the outskirts we put on a semblance of restraint, just enough to seem like belated revelers staggering home from a debauch. We did not separate, but managed to get to West's room, where we whispered with the gas up until dawn. Oh, Valentine's is coming up. By then we had calmed ourselves a little with rational theories and plans for investigation, so that we could sleep through the day, classes being disregarded. But that evening, 2 items in the paper, wholly unrelated, made it again impossible for us to sleep. The old deserted Chapman house had inexplicably burned to an amorphous heap of ashes. That we could understand because of the upset lamp. Also, an attempt had been made to disturb a new grave in the potter's field, as if by futile and spadeless clawing at the earth. That we could not understand, for we had patted down the mold very carefully. And for 17 years after that, West would look frequently over his shoulder and complain of fancied footsteps behind him. Now he has disappeared. Wow. This is off to a great start. This is awesome. All right. I've never read this one before. Okay. Let's continue. By the way, if you are enjoying the stream, please feel free to tweet it on out. Yeah. Because that's what we like around here. Share it with your friends. 2. The Plague Demon. I shall never forget that hideous summer, 16 years ago, when like a noxious Afrite from the halls of Iblis, typhoid stalked leeringly through Arkham. It is by that satanic scourge that most recall the year, for truly terror brooded with bat wings over the piles of coffins in the tombs of Christchurch Cemetery. Yet for me there is a greater horror in that time, a horror known to me alone, now that Herbert West has disappeared. West and I were doing postgraduate work in summer classes at the medical school of Miskatonic University, and my friend had attained a wide notoriety because of his experiments leading toward the revivification of the dead. After the scientific slaughter of uncounted small animals, the freakish work had ostensibly stopped by order of our skeptical dean, Dr. Alan Halsey, though West had continued to perform certain secret tests in his dingy boarding-house room, and had on one terrible and unforgettable occasion taken a human body from its grave in the Potter's Field to a deserted farmhouse beyond Meadow Hill. Okay, that's a big recap there. It's got me thinking that maybe when this was originally published, it was published in a serialized form. You know, like, so continue, if, in a newspaper or magazine there, and, so then the following month or what have you, when the next one comes out, you have to do that little recap. Okay, it's just the feeling I get from that. I was with him on that odious occasion, and saw him inject into the still veins the elixir which he thought would to some extent restore life's chemical and physical processes. It had ended horribly, in a delirium of fear which we gradually came to attribute to our own overwrought nerves, and West had never afterward been able to shake off a maddening sensation of being haunted and hunted. The body had not been quite fresh enough. It is obvious that to restore normal mental attributes a body must be very fresh indeed, and a burning of the old house had prevented us from burying the thing. It would have been better if we could have known it was underground. After that experience, West had dropped his researches for some time, but as the zeal of the born scientist slowly returned, he again became importunate with the college faculty, pleading for the use of the dissecting room and of fresh human specimens for the work he regarded as so overwhelmingly important. His pleas, however, were wholly in vain, for the decision of Dr. Halsey was inflexible, and the other professors all endorsed the verdict of their leader. In the radical theory of reanimation, they saw nothing but the immature vagaries of a youthful enthusiast whose slight form, yellow hair, spectacled blue eyes, and soft voice gave no hint of the supernormal, almost diabolical, power of the cold brain within. I can see him now as he was then, and I shiver. He grew sterner of face, but never elderly, and now Sefton Asylum has had the mishap, and West has vanished. West clashed disagreeably with Dr. Halsey near the end of our last undergraduate term, in a wordy dispute that did less to credit him than to the kindly dean, in point of courtesy. He felt that he was needlessly and irrationally retarded in a supremely great work. Ooh, wow. Getting them sparks out. That's a lot of sparks. Thank you, Shadowtronics. And Tallest Birch. Yeah, well, it also been popping a lot of sparks in there too as well. Thank you very much. Yeah. Gonna fill up one of those gemstones, I think. That would be cool. Good Lord. Sagafir. How you doing, Sagafir? What's shaking, man? How you doing? Good gracious, okay. We're on a bit of a roll of everything right now. Sagafir in the house. Shadowtronics. Tallest Birch. Oh, nice. And we got a host as well. A host as well from Sagafir. Very, very cool. It's always nice when Sagafir comes on by. Good to see you, man. Let's okay, we're gonna pick up from our chapter here. Wow, it's been a great, it's been a very good weekend. A very good weekend with a lot of friendly people putting in some channel subs. I appreciate all of them. West clashed disagreeably with Dr. Halsey near the end of our last undergraduate term in a wordy dispute that did less credit to him than to the kindly dean, in point of courtesy. He felt that he was needlessly and irrationally retarded in a supremely great work, a work which he could, of course, conduct to suit himself in later years, but which he wished to begin while still possessed of the exceptional facilities of the university. That the tradition-bound elders should ignore his singular results on animals and persist in their denial of the possibility of reanimation was inexpressibly disgusting and almost incomprehensible to a youth of West's logical temperament. Only greater maturity could help him understand the chronic mental limitations of the professor-doctor type, the product of generations of pathetic puritanism, kindly, conscientious, and sometimes gentle and amiable, yet always narrow, intolerant, custom-ridden, and lacking in perspective. Age has more charity for these incomplete yet high-souled characters whose worst real vice is timidity, and who are ultimately punished by general ridicule for their intellectual sins. Sins like Ptolemism, Calvinism, anti-Darwinism, anti-Nietzscheism, and every sort of Sabbatarianism and sumptuary legislation. West, young despite his marvelous scientific acquirements, had scant patience with good Dr. Halsey and his erudite colleagues, and nursed an increasing resentment, coupled with a desire to prove his theories to these obtuse worthies in some striking and dramatic fashion. Like most youths, he indulged in elaborate daydreams of revenge, triumph, and final magnanimous forgiveness. And then had come the scourge, grinning and lethal, from the nightmare caverns of Tartarus. West and I had graduated about the time of its beginning, but had remained for additional work at the summer school, so that we were in Arkham when it broke with full demoniac fury upon the town. Though not as yet licensed physicians, we now had our degrees, and were pressed frantically into public service as the numbers of the stricken grew. The situation was almost past management, and deaths ensued too frequently for the local undertakers fully to handle. Burials without embalming were made in rapid succession, and even the Christchurch Cemetery receiving tomb was crammed with coffins of the unembalmed dead. This circumstance was not without effect on West, who thought often of the irony of the situation. So many fresh specimens, yet none for his persecuted researches. We were frightfully overworked, and the terrific mental and nervous strain made my friend brood morbidly. But West's gentle enemies were no less harassed with prostrating duties. College had all but closed, and every doctor of the medical faculty was helping to fight the typhoid plague. Dr. Halsey, in particular, had distinguished himself in sacrificing service, applying his extreme skill with wholehearted energy to cases which many others shunned because of danger or apparent hopelessness. Before a month was over, the fearless dean had become a popular hero, though he seemed unconscious of his fame, as he struggled to keep from collapsing with physical fatigue and nervous exhaustion. West could not withhold admiration for the fortitude of his foe, but because of this was even more determined to prove to him the truth of his amazing doctrines. Taking advantage of the disorganization of both college work and municipal health regulations, he managed to get a recently deceased human body smuggled into the university dissecting room one night, and in my presence injected a new modification of his solution. The thing actually opened its eyes, but only stared at the ceiling with a look of soul-petrifying horror, before collapsing into an inertness from which nothing could rouse it. West said it was not fresh enough. The hot summer air does not favor corpses. That time we were almost caught before we incinerated the thing, and West doubted the advisability of repeating his daring misuse of the college laboratory. The peak of the epidemic was reached in August. West and I were almost dead, and Dr. Halsey did die on the 14th. The students all attended the hasty funeral on the 15th and bought an impressive wreath, though the latter was quite overshadowed by the tributes sent by wealthy Arkham citizens and by the municipality itself. It was almost a public affair, for the dean had surely been a public benefactor. After the entombment, we were all somewhat depressed, and spent the afternoon at the bar of the commercial house, where West, though shaken by the death of his chief opponent, chilled the rest of us with references to his notorious theories. Most of the students went home or to various duties as the evening advanced, but West persuaded me to aid him in making a night of it. West's landlady saw us arrive at his room at about 2 a.m. with a third man between us, and told her husband that we had all evidently dined and wined rather well. Apparently this acidulous matron was right. What's acidulous mean? Acidulous, sharp-tasting or sour, bitter or cutting, of a remark or tone. Apparently, this acidulous matron was right, for about 3 a.m. the whole house was aroused by cries coming from West's room, where, when they broke down the door, they found the two of us unconscious on the blood-stained carpet, beaten, scratched, and mauled, and with the broken remnants of West's bottles and instruments around us. Only an open window told what had become of our assailant, and many wondered how he himself had fared after the terrific leap from the second story to the lawn, which he must have made. There were some strange garments in the room, but West, upon regaining consciousness, said they did not belong to the stranger, but were specimens collected for bacteriological analysis in the course of investigations on the transmission of germ diseases. He ordered them burnt as soon as possible in the capacious fireplace. To the police we both declared ignorance of our late companion's identity. He was, West nervously said, a congenial stranger whom we had met at some downtown bar of uncertain location. We had all been rather jovial, and West and I did not wish to have our pugnacious companion hunted down. That same night saw the beginning of the second Arkham horror, the horror that to me eclipsed the plague itself. Christchurch Cemetery was the scene of a terrible killing, a watchman having been clawed to death in a manner not only too hideous for description, but raising a doubt as to the human agency of the deed. The victim had been seen alive considerably after midnight. The dawn revealed the unutterable thing. The manager of a circus at the neighboring town of Bolton was questioned, but he swore that no beast had at any time escaped from its cage. Those who found the body noted a trail of blood leading to the receiving tomb, where a small pool of red lay on the concrete just outside the gate. A fainter trail led away toward the woods, but it soon gave out. Hey, Jelly Buns, what's shaking? Okay, let me just finish up my thing of coffee here. I've got some spoopy action happening. The next night, devils danced on the roofs of Arkham, and unnatural madness howled in the wind. Through the fevered town had crept a curse, which some said was greater than the plague, and which some whispered was the embodied demon soul of the plague itself. 8 houses were entered by a nameless thing, which strewed red death in its wake. Chris Alberti, that hashtag there, I had to take that out. I had to remove that function because people are putting strange things in tweets these days. Yeah. That's why we can't have nice things. 8 houses were entered by a nameless thing, which strewed red death in its wake. In all, 17 maimed and shapeless remnants of bodies were left behind by the voiceless, sadistic monster that crept abroad. A few persons had half seen it in the dark, and said it was white and like a malformed ape or anthropomorphic fiend. It had not left behind quite all that it had attacked, for sometimes it had been hungry. The number it had killed was 14. 3 of the bodies had been in stricken homes, and had not been alive. On the 3rd night, frantic bands of searchers, led by the police, captured it in a house on Crane Street, near the Miskatonic campus. Hey, Helga. Battle Maniac. They had organized the quest with care, keeping in touch by means of volunteer telephone stations, and when someone in the college district had reported hearing a scratching at a shuttered window, the net was quickly spread. On account of the general alarm and precaution, there were only 2 more victims, and the capture was effected without major casualties. The thing was finally stopped by a bullet, though not a fatal one, and was rushed to the local hospital amidst universal excitement and loathing. For it had been a man. This much was clear despite the nauseous eyes, the voiceless simianism, and the demoniac savagery. They dressed its wound and carted it to the asylum at Sefton, where it beat its head against the walls of a padded cell for 16 years, until the recent mishap, when it escaped under circumstances that few like to mention. What had most disgusted the searchers of Arkham was the thing they noticed when the monster's face was cleaned. The mocking, unbelievable resemblance to a learned and self-sacrificing martyr who had been entombed but 3 days before. The late Dr. Alan Halsey, public benefactor and dean of the medical school of Miskatonic University. Man, oh boy, what a terrible way to go. Here's some spoopy storytelling. To the vanished Herbert West, and to me, the disgust and horror were supreme. I shudder tonight as I think of it, shudder even more than I did that morning, when West muttered through his bandages, "Damn it, it wasn't quite fresh enough." Yeah, this is a bit of a, yeah, it's a bit of an interesting story, the way it's being written out. I'm pretty sure it must have been serialized. We could probably look that up at some point there, find out what's going on. Let me just need to take a quick little peek at a window here. See how creative section is doing this morning. How's creative doing? Doing okay. Someone, I don't know what they're doing. Actually, I have no idea what they're doing right there. It looks like they just got doing a little loopy thing. Right. I don't know. The Looney Bin Arc server. Okay, yeah. Just taking a quick peek into a creative there, see what's going on. Let me just pull up my YouTube chat window again. See how, here we go. All right, yeah, just a quick little hello to our friends over there on YouTube. Yeah. There's a link down below to Mixer there. That's where we do our main streams from. Sometimes we stream out to YouTube as well, but most of it's over here on Mixer. Yeah. Alrighty. Man, oh man. Okay, so how's Helga doing today? I think you said the weekend's been pretty good to you. Very good. I'm going to have just a quick little, so far so good. That's nice. And you got to, yeah, got watching some movies there, with the old boyfriend. Ooh, very nice. Very cool. It's the Oscars tonight. Yeah, we got the Oscars coming up. All right, yeah, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. Make sure you're getting some help from a professional with that. I'll keep saying that till the cows come home. All right. Let us. Okay, we'll continue in just 1 second. Ah, there we go. There's an Icelandic music creator nominated. Oh, who is he? Nominated for which one? Chris Alberti's going to be watching it with Goldie and the Bear. What time does it start, man? I'm boycotting it because apparently I don't know, my invitation got lost in the mail or something. I don't know what happened. Don't know what happened. Oh shit! Hang on, my chat thing is supposed to be below my head. 1 second. Let me just move that. There we go. Now it's behind my head. Very good. Now I can see what's going on. Alrighty. Oh, she did the music for. Oh yeah. I read. I didn't know she was from Iceland, but I read a really amazing article on her, and the way that they wrote the music. It was yeah, it was very, very interesting. She won the BAFTA and the Golden Globes. Nice. Yeah. Yes. That movie's. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be. I don't know. Some people are excited that it's winning so well, and other people are just like, I don't know what it says about society if a movie like that is good. I don't know. Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll get back to our story in just a second. Just a second. Joker's. Oh, you have seen it, dear Chris Alberti? Yeah, I have not seen it yet. I have a copy of it. It is pretty good. Okay. You hope for the best. It'd be awesome if she wins an Oscar. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, okay. One second. I'm just going to go grab my thing of water. One second. Be right back. Okay, and we're back. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I had to go get one of these bad boys. Yeah, we'll see how to. Yeah, I'll just be watching the summary of it there. All right, there we go. That's good. Put the lid on that. Okay, here we go. On with our story. That's why you're here. Let's do it. Oh, let me do my YouTube chat window back real fast. There we go. 3. 6 shots by midnight. It is uncommon to fire all 6 shots of a revolver with great suddenness when one would probably be sufficient, but many things in the life of Herbert West were uncommon. It is, for instance, not often that a young physician leaving college is obliged to conceal the principles which guide his selection of a home and office. Yet that was the case with Herbert West. When he and I obtained our degrees at the medical school of Miskatonic University and sought to relieve our poverty by setting up as general practitioners, we took great care not to say that we chose our house because it was fairly well isolated and near as possible to the potter's field. Reticence such as this is seldom without cause, nor indeed was ours, for our requirements were those resulting from a life-work distinctly unpopular. Outwardly we were doctors only, but beneath the surface were aims of far greater and more terrible moment. For the essence of Herbert West's existence was a quest amid black and forbidden realms of the unknown, in which he hoped to uncover the secret of life and restore to perpetual animation the graveyard's cold clay. Such a quest demands strange materials, among them fresh human bodies. And in order to keep supplied with these indispensable things, one must live quietly and not far from a place of informal interment. West and I had met in college, and I had been the only one to sympathize with his hideous experiments. Gradually, I had come to be his inseparable assistant, and now that we were out of college, we had to keep together. It was not easy to find a good opening for 2 doctors in company, but finally the influence of the university secured us a practice in Bolton, a factory town near Arkham, the seat of the college. The Bolton worsted mills are the largest in the Miskatonic Valley, and their polyglot employees are never popular as patients with the local physicians. We chose our house with the greatest care, seizing at last on a rather run-down cottage near the end of Pond Street, 5 numbers from the closest neighbor, and separated from the local potter's field by only a stretch of meadowland, bisected by a narrow neck of the rather dense forest which lies to the north. The distance was greater than we wished, but we could get no nearer house without going on the other side of the field, wholly out of the factory district. We were not much displeased, however, since there were no people between us and our sinister source of supplies. The walk was a trifle long, but we could haul our silent specimens undisturbed. Our practice was surprisingly large from the very first, large enough to please most young doctors, and large enough to prove a bore and a burden to students whose real interest lay elsewhere. The mill hands were of somewhat turbulent inclinations, and besides their many natural needs, their frequent clashes and stabbing affrays gave us plenty to do. But what actually absorbed our minds was the secret laboratory we had fitted up in the cellar. The laboratory with the long table under the electric lights, where in the small hours of the morning we often injected West's various solutions into the veins of the things we dragged from the potter's field. West was experimenting madly to find something which would start man's vital motions anew after they had been stopped by the thing we call death, but had encountered the most ghastly obstacles. The solution had to be differently compounded for different types. What would serve for guinea pigs would not serve for human beings, and different human specimens required large modifications. The bodies had to be exceedingly fresh, or the slight decomposition of brain tissue would render perfect reanimation impossible. Indeed, the greatest problem was to get them fresh enough. West had had horrible experiences during his secret college researches with corpses of doubtful vintage. The results of partial or imperfect animation were much more hideous than were the total failures, and we both held fearsome recollections of such things. Ever since our first demoniac session in the deserted farmhouse on Meadow Hill in Arkham, we had felt a brooding menace, and West, though a calm, blond, blue-eyed scientific automaton in most respects, often confessed to a shuddering sensation of stealthy pursuit. He half felt he was being followed, a psychological delusion of shaken nerves, enhanced by the undeniably disturbing fact that at least one of our reanimated specimens was still alive, a frightful carnivorous thing in a padded cell at Sefton. Then there was another, our first, whose exact fate we had never learned. We had fair luck with specimens in Bolton, much better than in Arkham. We had not been settled a week before we got an accident victim on the very night of burial, and made it open its eyes with an amazingly rational expression before the solution failed. It had lost an arm. If it had been a perfect body, we might have succeeded better. Between then and the next January, we secured 3 more. 1 total failure, 1 case of marked muscular motion, and 1 rather shivery thing. It rose of itself and uttered a sound. Then came a period when luck was poor. Interments fell off, and those that did occur were of specimens either too diseased or too maimed for use. We kept track of all the deaths and their circumstances with systematic care. Hey there, Stated Tomcat. What's up? How you doing? Thanks for joining us here for a little book club action. Hope your weekend has been awesome. Helga's, the Oscars start in an hour. You have to watch the rerun. Yeah, well, yeah, I'll just be capturing the highlights on Twitter or something like that. But here we go. Let us continue. One March night, however, we unexpectedly obtained a specimen which did not come from the potter's field. In Bolton, the prevailing spirit of Puritanism had outlawed the sport of boxing, with the usual result. Surreptitious and ill-conducted bouts among the mill workers were common, and occasionally professional talent of low grade was imported. This late winter night there had been such a match, evidently with disastrous results, since two timorous Poles had come to us with incoherently whispered entreaties to attend a very special, secret, and desperate case. We followed them to an abandoned barn, where the remnants of a crowd of frightened foreigners were watching a silent black form on the floor. The match had been between Kid O'Brien, a lubberly and now quaking youth with a most un-Hibernian hooked nose, and Buck Robinson, the Harlem Smoke. He had been knocked out, and a moment's examination showed us that he would permanently remain so. He was a loathsome, gorilla-like thing, with abnormally long arms which I could not help calling forelegs, and a face that conjured up thoughts of unspeakable Congo secrets and tom-tom poundings under an eerie moon. These are the troublesome things which Mr. Lovecraft likes putting into his stuff. All right. Troublesome. The body must have looked even worse in life, but the world holds many ugly things. Fear was upon the whole pitiful crowd, for they did not know what the law would exact of them if the affair were not hushed up, and they were grateful when West, in spite of my involuntary shudders, offered to get rid of the thing quietly, for a purpose I knew too well. There was a bright moonlight over the snowless landscape, but we dressed the thing and carried it home between us through the deserted streets and meadows, as we had carried a similar thing one horrible night in Arkham. We approached the house from the field in the rear, took the specimen in the back door and down the cellar stairs, and prepared it for the usual experiment. Our fear of the police was absurdly great, though we had timed our trip to avoid the solitary patrolman of that section. The result was warily anticlimactic. Ghastly as our prize appeared, it was wholly unresponsive to every solution we injected in its black arm. Solutions prepared from experience with white specimens only. So as the hour grew dangerously near to dawn, we did as we had done with the others, dragged the thing across the meadows to the neck of the woods near the potter's field, and buried it there, in the best sort of grave the frozen ground would furnish. The grave was not very deep, but fully as good as that of the previous specimen, the thing which had risen of itself and uttered a sound. In the light of our dark lanterns we carefully covered it with leaves and dead vines, fairly certain that the police would never find it in a forest so dim and so dense. The next day I was increasingly apprehensive about the police, for a patient brought rumors of a suspected fight and death. West had still another source of worry, for he had been called in the afternoon to a case which ended very threateningly. An Italian woman had become hysterical over her missing child, a lad of 5 who had strayed off early morning and failed to appear for dinner, and had developed symptoms highly alarming in view of an always weak heart. It was a very foolish hysteria, for the boy had often run away before, but Italian peasants are exceedingly superstitious, and this woman seemed as much harassed by omens as by facts. About 7 o'clock in the evening, she had died, and her frantic husband had made a frightful scene in his efforts to kill West, whom he wildly blamed for not saving her life. Friends had held him when he drew a stiletto, but West departed amidst his inhuman shrieks, curses, and oaths of vengeance. In his latest affliction, the fellow seemed to have forgotten his child, who was still missing as the night advanced. There was some talk of searching the woods, but most of the family's friends were busy with the dead woman and the screaming man. Altogether, the nervous strain upon West must have been tremendous. Thoughts of the police and of the mad Italian both weighed heavily. We retired about 11, but I did not sleep well. Bolton had a surprisingly good police force for so small a town, and I could not help fearing the mess which would ensue if the affair of the night before were ever tracked down. It might mean the end of all our local work, and perhaps prison for both West and me. I did not like those rumors of a fight which were floating about. After the clock had struck 3, the moon shone in my eyes, but I turned over without rising to pull down the shade. Then came the steady rattling at the back door. I lay still and somewhat dazed, but before long heard West's rap on my door. He was clad in dressing gown and slippers, and had in his hands a revolver and an electric flashlight. From the revolver, I knew that he was thinking more of the crazed Italian than of the police. "We'd better both go," he whispered. "It wouldn't do to not answer it anyway, and it may be a patient. It would be like one of those fools to try the back door." So we both went down the stairs on tiptoe, with a fear partly justified and partly that which comes only from the soul of the weird small hours. The rattling continued, growing somewhat louder. When we reached the door, I cautiously unbolted it and threw it open, and as the moon streamed revealingly down on the form silhouetted there, West did a peculiar thing. Despite the obvious danger of attracting notice and bringing down on our heads the dreaded police investigation, a thing which, after all, was mercifully averted by the relative isolation of our cottage, my friend suddenly, excitedly, and unnecessarily emptied all 6 chambers of his revolver into the nocturnal visitor. For that visitor was neither Italian nor policeman. Looming hideously against the spectral moon was a gigantic, misshapen thing not to be imagined save in nightmares. A glassy-eyed, ink-black apparition, nearly on all 4s, covered with bits of mold, leaves, and vines, foul with caked blood, and having between its glistening teeth a snow-white, terrible, cylindrical object terminating in a tiny hand. Ooh. Man, this is getting dark. Yeah. I gotta say, it's yeah, all right. I'm kind of liking it. I don't know if they've ever done like a decent adaptation of this movie. I know back in the 80s, they started. There was the Reanimator movies, and I remember I saw the first one, and yeah, it was pretty good, pretty fun. And I guess it's just loosely based on this one here. But yeah, you know, like typical. It was almost like comedy horror. Very, very dark comedy horror though. But yeah, it is definitely not sticking to this story so much. But yeah, Reanimator. It's that was I don't know what 84, I think, something like that. A pretty good but loose adaptation, I thought. But yeah, I'm just wondering if anyone's ever done a more faithful adaptation. I don't know. There we go. All right. Anyway, so yeah, if take we got to just be a minute before we pop back into the next chapter there. If anyone has any questions or anything like that before we dive back on in, now's the time to get them on in, because we're just plowing through these chapters. Just going to take a quick look at how we're doing in creative here. What is this dude doing? I think that dude's just watching a movie. I think, in creative. Alright. That's how they want to roll. Okay, alright. It shouldn't be in there, that's for sure. Alright. Let's see, where we at? Okay, I think we're still going strong then. Still going strong. My little monitor window's frozen. Fantastic. Fantastic. It's just, okay, well, maybe if I reduce the thing there. Okay, what do we got? I can't believe Sega Fear came in and hooked us up with a follow. That's, sorry, a subscription. That's very kind. Joe, last night got crazy with the channel subs too, by the way. Just checking out on Twitter real fast. Very crazy with the, we had Just Jevica. Just Jevica came on in. And this is after Vikings for the win. It was being all crazy. With his Ember trains, Just Jevica. I think she like picked up like 9 gift subs. I think last night. It was insane. It just wouldn't stop, and there was she had like some crazy Ember action happening there too. It certainly turned my night around. That's for sure. Because as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, things started off real rough. But we're having a good time with it now. Yeah. It ended up very well. Okay, let's get back to our story. Oh, that's nice. I like that. Little gift that you picked up there, Chris Alberti, of Lovecraft spinning around. Very nice. I like it. Okay, where are we at? Okay. Stated tomato is just like stated tomcat. Excuse me. Stated tomcat, not tomato. Hey, how you doing? All right. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue with our story here. Herbert West, Reanimator. 4. The Scream of the Dead. The scream of a dead man gave to me that acute and added horror of Dr. Herbert West, which harassed the later years of our companionship. It is natural that such a thing as a dead man's scream should give horror, for it is obviously not a pleasing or ordinary occurrence. But I was used to similar experiences, hence suffered on this occasion only because of a particular circumstance. And as I have implied, it was not of the dead man himself that I became afraid. Herbert West, whose associate and assistant I was, possessed scientific interests far beyond the usual routine of a village physician. That was why, when establishing his practice in Bolton, he had chosen an isolated house near the Potter's Field. Briefly and brutally stated, West's soul-absorbing interest was a secret study of the phenomena of life and its cessation, leading toward the reanimation of the dead through injections of an excitant solution. For this ghastly experimenting, it was necessary to have a constant supply of very fresh human bodies. Very fresh because even the least decay hopelessly damaged the brain structure. And human because we found that the solution had to be compounded differently for different types of organisms. Channel 1. How you doing, Channel 1? What's shaking? This is Book Club. Welcome to it. That's right. Very nice. Alrighty. There we go. I'll catch up with chat in just a minute. In the meantime, we're gonna keep on going for like a bit here. I'll get back to you soon. Scores of rabbits and guinea pigs had been killed and treated, but their trail was a blind one. West had never fully succeeded because he had never been able to secure a corpse sufficiently fresh. What he wanted were bodies from which vitality had only just departed. Bodies with every cell intact and capable of receiving again the impulse toward that mode of motion called life. There was hope that this second and artificial life might be made perpetual by repetitions of the injection. But we had learned that an ordinary natural life would not respond to the action. To establish the artificial motion, natural life must be extinct. The specimens must be very fresh, but genuinely dead. The awesome quest had begun when West and I were students at the Miskatonic University Medical School in Arkham, vividly conscious for the first time of the thoroughly mechanical nature of life. That was 7 years before, but West looked scarcely a day older now. He was small, blond, clean-shaven, soft-voiced, and spectacled, with only an occasional flash of a cold blue eye to tell of the hardening and growing fanaticism of his character under the pressure of his terrible investigations. Our experiences had often been hideous in the extreme, the results of defective reanimation, when lumps of graveyard clay had been galvanized into morbid, unnatural, and brainless motion by various modifications of the vital solution. One thing had uttered a nerve-shattering scream. Another had risen violently, beaten us both to unconsciousness, and run amok in a shocking way before it could be placed behind asylum bars. Still another, a loathsome African monstrosity, had clawed out of its shallow grave and done a deed. West had to shoot that object. We could not get bodies fresh enough to show any trace of reason when reanimated, so had perforce created nameless horrors. It was disturbing to think that one, perhaps two, of our monsters still lived. That thought haunted us shadowingly, till finally West disappeared under frightful circumstances. But at the time of the scream, in the cellar laboratory of the isolated Bolton cottage, our fears were subordinate to our anxiety for extremely fresh specimens. West was more avid than I, so that it almost seemed to me that he looked half covetously at any very healthy, living physique. Eric Bojo, what up? It was in July 1910 that the bad luck regarding specimens began to turn. I had been on a long visit to my parents in Illinois, and upon my return found West in a state of singular elation. He had, he told me excitedly, in all likelihood solved the problem of freshness through an approach from an entirely new angle, that of artificial preservation. I had known that he was working on a new and highly unusual embalming compound, and was not surprised that it had turned out well. But until he explained the details, I was rather puzzled as to how such a compound could help in our work, since the objectionable staleness of the specimens was largely due to delay occurring before we secured them. This I now saw West had clearly recognized, creating his embalming compound for future rather than immediate use, and trusting to fate to supply again some very recent and unburied corpse, as it had years before, when we obtained the African killed in the Bolton prize fight. At last, fate had been kind, so that on this occasion there lay in the secret cellar laboratory a corpse whose decay could not by any possibility have begun. What would happen on reanimation, and whether we could hope for a revival of mind and reason, West did not venture to predict. The experiment would be a landmark in our studies, and he had saved the new body for my return. so that both might share the spectacle in accustomed fashion. West told me how he had obtained the specimen. It had been a vigorous man, a well-dressed stranger just off the train on his way to transact some business with the Bolton worsted mills. The walk through the town had been long, and by the time the traveller paused at our cottage to ask the way to the factories, his heart had become greatly overtaxed. He had refused a stimulant, and had suddenly dropped dead only a moment later. The body, as might be expected, seemed to West a heaven-sent gift. In his brief conversation, the stranger had made it clear that he was unknown in Bolton, and a search of his pockets subsequently revealed him to be one Robert Levitt of St. Louis, apparently without a family to make instant inquiries about his appearance. If this man could not be restored to life, no one would know of our experiment. Just going to take a quick little aside here. Because Channel 1 here in the house, I certainly love seeing you all. How you all doing? Thank you for coming by. My main stream here on Mixer, let me just change scenes real fast, is book reading. I'm Mixer's #1 book reader. No one else does anything like what I do here. So this is the book we're currently reading, this one over here to the right, The Phantom of the Opera. The novel's 110 years old. Everyone still knows it. It's really, really good. Everything we read is in the public domain, which means that, if you just catch like a little bit of our book club, and you like, the way the story is going, you can pick up a free digital download for yourself because you already own it. It's in the public domain. Let's see. So Monday through Thursday, we work our way through novels. On Sundays, like today, Short Story Sunday, where we read short stories or novellas. In this case, today we're doing Herbert West, Reanimator by H.P. Lovecraft. Usually the stories are much shorter. We'll do like short stories and poems, and sometimes we have creative writers in our midst who send in their short stories that they've written for me to read. I always appreciate getting those. Some of the stories have just been fantastic that people have done. Let me hit my and we're currently doing a creative writing exercise called the Edgar Allan Poe experiment. Let me just find the timer for that. Got some links in it there. Where's it at? Sunday. Is this the one? There we go. Just run that real fast. Yeah. So for Edgar Allan Poe's birthday a couple of weeks ago, we read through several short stories of his, and we found an unfinished story. He wrote it. He wrote the beginning, and then he died. It's called The Lighthouse. So anyway, for creative writers here on our book club channel, the task is to continue and complete that short story. And on Sunday, February 23rd, that's 2 weeks from today. There's still time to get in on this if you want. But yeah, 2 weeks from today, I will be reading what you have written, how you continued The Lighthouse and how you finished the story. It doesn't have to be an Edgar Allan Poe style. It's literally is a creative writing thing. However it goes, it goes. That's up to you. And while I'm narrating them, Mixer artist Art by Galen will be speed sketching all of the scenes and the actions and all the events that are happening in your story while I'm narrating them out loud. And when it's done, after over the next couple of weeks after that, I'll be recording in my studio a professional, basically mini audio book of your version of The Lighthouse, written by Edgar Allan Poe and you. So if that's something you want to get in on, it doesn't cost anything. We just have a good time here on Mixer, reading books, getting creative with them. So yeah, and just in a second, we're going to pop back into our stream here. Generally in the mornings, book reading. In the evenings, video gaming. Yeah. Most times it's good. Oh, it reminds me, I'm actually before I forget, while I'm plugging all my stuff real fast. Next Saturday, I've been invited to a Halo tournament. I need more team members though. Halo Reach on PC. Can't be on console. Has to be Halo Reach on PC. If that's the kind of thing you might be interested in, send me a message. And yeah, because I'm probably going to have trouble rounding up 4 people to play Griffball. Yeah, it's not Slayer or anything like that. Griffball, a very niche game mode on that. So just may as well mention it to as many people as I can. Anyway, so thank you in advance for all the follows and the hosts and the what have you. We're going to get back into our book and get to reading again. Call this okay? Okay. But there we go. Okay, I hope I covered everything that we do here on Book Club. Time to get back to it. Let's do it. Back to it. Here we go. If this man could not be restored to life, no one would know of our experiment. We buried our materials in a dense strip of woods between the house and the potter's field. If, on the other hand, he could be restored, our fame would be brilliantly and perpetually established. So without delay, West had injected into the body's wrist the compound which would hold it fresh for use after my arrival. The matter of the presumably weak heart, which to my mind imperiled the success of our experiment, did not appear to trouble West extensively. He hoped at last to obtain what he had never obtained before, a rekindled spark of reason, and perhaps a normal, living creature. Yeah, well, thank you, Call This Okay. 5 days a week we do it. So if you like it, give me that follow. So on the night of July 18, 1910, Herbert West and I stood in the cellar laboratory and gazed at a white, silent figure beneath the dazzling arc light. The embalming compound had worked uncannily well, for as I stared fascinatedly at the sturdy frame, which had lain 2 weeks without stiffening, I was moved to seek West's assurance that the thing was really dead. This assurance he gave readily enough, reminding me that the reanimating solution was never used without careful tests as to life, since it could have no effect if any of the original vitality were present. As West proceeded to take preliminary steps, I was impressed by the vast intricacy of the new experiment, an intricacy so vast that he could trust no hand less delicate than his own. Forbidding me to touch the body, he first injected a drug into the wrist just beside the place his needle had punctured when injecting the embalming compound. This, he said, was to neutralize the compound and release the system to a normal relaxation, so that the reanimating solution might freely work when injected. Slightly later, when a change and a gentle tremor seemed to affect the dead limbs, West stuffed a pillow-like object violently over the twitching face, not withdrawing it until the corpse appeared quiet and ready for our attempt at reanimation. The pale enthusiast now applied some last perfunctory tests for absolute lifelessness, withdrew satisfied, and finally injected into the left arm an accurately measured amount of the vital elixir, prepared during the afternoon with a greater care than we had used since college days, when our feet were new and groping. I cannot express the wild, breathless suspense with which we waited for results on this first really fresh specimen. The first we could reasonably expect to open its lips in rational speech, perhaps to tell of what it had seen beyond the unfathomable abyss. West was a materialist, believing in no soul, and attributing all the working of consciousness to bodily phenomena. Consequently, he looked for no revelation of hideous secrets from gulfs and caverns beyond death's barrier. I did not wholly disagree with him theoretically, yet held vague, instinctive remnants of the primitive faith of my forefathers, so that I could not help eyeing the corpse with a certain amount of awe and terrible expectation. Besides, I could not extract from my memory that hideous, inhuman shriek we heard on the night we tried our first experiment in the deserted farmhouse at Arkham. Very little time had elapsed before I saw the attempt was not to be a total failure. A touch of color came to cheeks hitherto chalk white, and spread out under the curiously ample stubble of sandy beard. West, who had his hand on the pulse of the left wrist, suddenly nodded significantly, and almost simultaneously a mist appeared on the mirror inclined above the body's mouth. There followed a few spasmodic, muscular motions, and then an audible breathing and visible motion of the chest. I looked at the closed eyelids, and thought I detected a quivering. Then the lids opened, showing eyes which were gray, calm, and alive, but still unintelligent, and not even curious. In a moment of fantastic whim, I whispered questions to the reddening ears. Questions of other worlds of which the memory might still be present. Subsequent terror drove them from my mind. Well, one second. Little alarms going off there. In a moment of fantastic whim, I whispered questions to the reddening ears, questions of other worlds of which the memory might still be present. Subsequent terror drove them from my mind, but I think the last one, which I repeated, was, "Where have you been?" I do not yet know whether I was answered or not, for no sound came from the well-shaped mouth. But I do know that at that moment I firmly thought the thin lips moved silently, forming syllables I would have vocalized as, "Only now," if that phrase had possessed any sense or relevancy. At that moment, as I say, I was elated with the conviction that the one great goal had been attained, and that for the first time a reanimated corpse had uttered distinct words impelled by actual reason. In the next moment there was no doubt about the triumph, no doubt that the solution had truly accomplished, at least temporarily, its full mission of restoring rational and articulate life to the dead. But in that triumph there came to me the greatest of all horrors, not horror of the thing that spoke, but of the deed that I had witnessed, and of the man with whom my professional fortunes were joined. For that very fresh body, at last writhing into full and terrifying consciousness, with eyes dilated at the memory of its last scene on earth, threw out its frantic hands in a life-and-death struggle with the air, and suddenly collapsing into a second and final dissolution from which there could be no return, screamed out the cry that will ring eternally in my aching brain. "Help! Keep off, you cursed little towhead fiend! Keep that damned needle away from me!" Five. The horror from the shadows. Many men have related hideous things, not mentioned in print, which happened on the battlefields of the Great War. Some of these things have made me faint, others have convulsed me with devastating nausea, while still others have made me tremble and look behind me in the dark. Hey, Mike! Yet despite the worst of them, I believe I can myself relate the most hideous thing of all. The shocking, the unnatural, the unbelievable horror from the shadows. In 1915, I was a physician with the rank of first lieutenant in a Canadian regiment in Flanders, one of many Americans to precede the government itself into the gigantic struggle. I had not entered the army on my own initiative, but rather as a natural result of the enlistment of the man whose indispensable assistant I was, the celebrated Boston surgical specialist, Dr. Herbert West. Dr. West had been avid for a chance to serve as surgeon in a great war, and when the chance had come, he carried me with him, almost against my will. Oh, hey, Mamani, how you doing? Phoenix Liger? What's up? Phoenix Liger. Hello. Good morning to all. There were reasons why I would have been glad to let the war separate us, reasons why I found the practice of medicine and the companionship of West more and more irritating. But when he had gone to Ottawa, and through a colleague's influence secured a medical commission as major, I could not resist the imperious persuasion of one determined that I should accompany him in my usual capacity. When I say that Dr. West was avid to serve in battle, I do not mean to imply that he was either naturally warlike or anxious for the safety of civilization. Always an ice-cold intellectual machine, slight, blond, blue-eyed, and spectacled. I think he secretly sneered at my occasional martial enthusiasms and censures of supine neutrality. There was, however, something he wanted in embattled Flanders, and in order to secure it he had to assume a military exterior. What he wanted was not a thing which many persons want, but something connected with the peculiar branch of medical science which he had chosen quite clandestinely to follow, and in which he had achieved amazing and occasionally hideous results. It was, in fact, nothing more or less than an abundant supply of freshly killed men in every stage of dismemberment. Oh, Urs has got a new Xbox. Nice, nice, nice. Herbert West needed fresh bodies because his life work was the reanimation of the dead. This work was not known to the fashionable clientele who had so swiftly built up his fame after his arrival in Boston, but was only too well known to me, who had been his closest friend and sole assistant since the old days in Miskatonic University Medical School at Arkham. It was in those college days that he had begun his terrible experiments, first on small animals and then on human bodies, shockingly obtained. There was a solution which he injected into the veins of dead things, and if they were fresh enough, they responded in strange ways. He had had much trouble in discovering the proper formula, for each type of organism was found to need a stimulus especially adapted to it. Terror stalked him when he reflected on his partial failures. Nameless things resulting from imperfect solutions, or from bodies insufficiently fresh. A certain number of these failures had remained alive. One was in an asylum, while others had vanished. And as he thought of conceivable, yet virtually impossible eventualities, he often shivered beneath his usual stolidity. West had soon learned that absolute freshness was the prime requisite for useful specimens, and had accordingly resorted to frightful and unnatural expedients in body snatching. In college and during our early practice together in the factory town of Bolton, my attitude toward him had been largely one of fascinated admiration. But as his boldness and methods grew, I began to develop a gnawing fear. I did not like the way he looked at healthy, living bodies. And then there came a nightmarish session in the cellar laboratory when I learned that a certain specimen had been a living body when he secured it. That was the first time he had ever been able to revive the quality of rational thought in a corpse, and his success, obtained at such a loathsome cost, had completely hardened him. Of his methods in the intervening Oh, yep, everything's well. Yeah, yep. I'm glad you're enjoying the stories there, Phoenix Liger. Thank you. Of his methods in the intervening 5 years, I dare not speak. I was held to him by sheer force of fear, and witnessed sights that no human tongue could repeat. Gradually, I came to find Herbert West himself more horrible than anything he did. That was when it dawned on me that his once normal scientific zeal for prolonging life had subtly degenerated into a mere morbid and ghoulish curiosity and secret sense of charnel picturesqueness. His interest became a hellish and perverse addiction to the repellently and fiendishly abnormal. He gloated calmly over artificial monstrosities which would make most healthy men drop dead from fright and disgust. He became, behind his pallid intellectuality, a fastidious Baudelaire of physical experiment, a languid good Lord, what does that say? Illegabilis. No? I have to look. I'm gonna look that one up real fast. Illegalibus. 1 second. Elagabalus. It was also known as Heliogalibus. Okay. Roman emperor. A member of he was Syrian second son of blah blah blah. Part of the Marcellus family. All right. He was called, okay, and the shortened name came out only after he died. Why did, why is he known for robbing tombs? Oh, because of his unspeakably disgusting life. An incompetent ruler, one of the least competent rulers, oh, wow. Wow, okay, very interesting. All right, okay, yeah, okay, that's definitely a fellow worth looking up. And okay, I don't think he's related to that, Mike Stanges. Is there something funny about my friend's name? All right. He became, behind his pallid tongue twisting. He became, behind his pallid intellectuality, a fastidious Baudelaire of physical experiment, a languid Elagabalus of the tombs. Dangers he met unflinchingly. Crimes he committed unmoved. I think the climax came when he had proved his point that rational life can be restored, and had sought new worlds to conquer by experimenting on the reanimation of detached parts of bodies. He had wild and original ideas on the independent vital properties of organic cells and nerve tissue separated from natural physiological systems, and achieved some hideous preliminary results in the form of never-dying, artificially nourished tissue, obtained from the nearly hatched eggs of an indescribable tropical reptile. 2 biological points he was exceedingly anxious to settle. First, whether any amount of consciousness and rational action be possible without the brain, proceeding from the spinal cord and various nerve centers. And second, whether any kind of ethereal, intangible relation distinct from the material cells may exist to link the surgically separated parts of what has previously been a single organism. All this research work required a prodigious supply of freshly slaughtered human flesh, and that was why Herbert West had entered the Great War. The phantasmal, unmentionable thing occurred one midnight late in March, 1915, in a field hospital behind the lines at St. Eloi. I wonder even now if it could have been any other than a demoniac dream of delirium. West had a private laboratory in an east room of the barn-like temporary edifice, assigned him on his plea that he was devising new and radical methods for the treatment of hitherto hopeless cases of maiming. There he worked like a butcher in the midst of his gory wares. I could never get used to the levity with which he handled and classified certain things. At times he actually did perform marvels of surgery for the soldiers, but his chief delights were of a less public and philanthropic kind, requiring many explanations of sounds, which seemed peculiar even amidst that babble of the damned. Among those sounds were frequent revolver shots, surely not uncommon on a battlefield, but distinctly uncommon in an hospital. Dr. West's reanimated specimens were not meant for long existence, or a large audience. Besides human tissue, West employed much of the reptile embryo tissue, which he had cultivated with such singular results. It was better than human material for maintaining life in organless fragments, and that was now my friend's chief activity. In a dark corner of the laboratory, over a queer incubating burner, he kept a large covered vat full of this reptilian cell matter, which multiplied and grew puffily and hideously. Oh, yeah. Mike Stench's Herbert West, Reanimator. Dr. Herbert West is not a good man. On the night of which I speak, we had a splendid new specimen, a man at once physically powerful and of such high mentality that a sensitive nervous system was assured. It was rather ironic, for he was the officer who had helped West to his commission, and who was now to have been our associate. Moreover, he had in the past secretly studied the theory of reanimation, to some extent, under West. Major Sir Eric Morland Clapham Lee, D.S.O., was the greatest surgeon in our division, and had been hastily assigned to the St. Eloi sector when news of the heavy fighting reached headquarters. He had come in an aeroplane, piloted by the intrepid Lieutenant Ronald Hill, only to be shot down when directly over his destination. The fall had been spectacular and awful. Hill was unrecognizable afterward, but the wreck yielded up the great surgeon in a nearly decapitated but otherwise intact condition. West had greedily seized the lifeless thing which had once been his friend and fellow scholar, and I shuddered when he finished severing the head, placing it in his hellish vat of pulpy reptile tissue to preserve it for future experiments, and proceeded to treat the decapitated body on the operating table. He injected new blood, joined certain veins, arteries, and nerves at the headless neck, and closed the ghastly aperture with engrafted skin from an unidentified specimen which had borne an officer's uniform. I knew what he wanted, to see if this highly organized body could exhibit, without its head, any of the signs of mental life which had distinguished Sir Eric Morland Clapham Lee. Once a student of reanimation, this silent trunk was now gruesomely called upon to exemplify it. I can still see Herbert West under the sinister electric light as he injected his reanimating solution into the arm of the headless body. The scene I cannot describe. I should faint if I tried it, for there is madness in a room full of classified charnel things, with blood and lesser human debris almost ankle-deep on the slimy floor, and with hideous reptilian abnormalities sprouting, bubbling, and baking over a winking bluish-green spectre of dim flame in a far corner of black shadows. The specimen, as West repeatedly observed, had a splendid nervous system. Much was expected of it, and as a few twitching motions began to appear, I could see the feverish interest in West's face. He was ready, I think, to see proof of his increasingly strong opinion that consciousness, reason, and personality can exist independently of the brain, that man has no central connective spirit, but is merely a machine of nervous matter, each section more or less complete in itself. Hey, Velociraptors here, Spooky Lou coming on by. How you guys doing? I'll catch up with chat at the end of the chapter. In one triumphant demonstration, West was about to relegate the mystery of life to the category of myth. The body now twitched more vigorously, and beneath our avid eyes commenced to heave in a frightful way. The arms stirred disquietingly, the legs drew up, and various muscles contracted in a repulsive kind of writhing. Then the headless thing threw out its arms in a gesture which was unmistakably one of desperation, an intelligent desperation apparently sufficient to prove every theory of Herbert West. Certainly the nerves were recalling the man's last act in life, the struggle to get free of the falling aeroplane. What followed, I shall never positively know. It may have been wholly an hallucination from the shock caused at that instant by the sudden and complete destruction of the building in a cataclysm of German shell fire. Who can gainsay it, since West and I were the only proved survivors? West liked to think that before his recent disappearance, but there were times when he could not, for it was queer that we both had the same hallucination. The hideous occurrence itself was very simple, notable only for what it implied. The body on the table had risen with a blind and terrible groping, and we had heard a sound. I should not call that sound a voice, for it was too awful, and yet its timbre was not the most awful thing about it. Neither was its message. It had merely screamed, "Jump, Ronald, for God's sake, jump!" The awful thing was its source, for it had come from the large covered vat in that ghoulish corner of crawling black shadows. So that's just the head. That's just the head in the jar there now. Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, how are you all doing? How are you all doing? Yeah, this is actually very cool. It's the first time actually reading the actual book, Herbert West Reanimator. It seems it was, the way it reads, it seems it was written in a serial way. Like a new episode every month or something like that. The West family sure had nasty kids. Fred and Rosemary, who kept corpses in the walls. The Wicked Witch of the West. Wow, you've been thinking hard about this one. Fred and Rosemary West, who kept corpses in the wall. The Wicked Witch of the West, she gave Dorothy a hard time. Now Herbert West, the creepy doctor. Yeah, who's Fred and Rosemary? With corpses in the wall. Hey there, Backward Lion. Hey, ma'am, what's shaking? How you doing? Man. Some spooky action going on. Good to see you all. Alrighty, we'll get back to our story in just a second here. Velociraptor, save the world is so hard you spent 3 hours in one horde match to live 30 waves. Started at 1 a.m. and ended at 3. You finally got your exclusive banner. Nice. You're the only person I know that actually still plays the actual Save the World. Mike Dench's, it was in London, a B&B from hell. Interesting. Interesting. Mixer wants a screenshot from the sub. Wow. Okay. Yeah. That'll be in the VOD. It's quite a long one from yesterday, but I'm sure you can find. Yeah, I can find it. I'll scrub through the thing there, looking for the thing, and get you that screenshot. But yeah, I mean, they can do it. It's kind of weird that they're asking for proof. I mean, they should have the record of it. Yeah, I'll scrub through the VOD a bit later tonight and send you a screenshot of it there, Backward Lion. Oh, actually, do I? I think I still have yesterday's VOD. I think. Oh, yeah. You know, let me just take a quick look. 1 second. Where my VODs are at past streams. Got one from yesterday for 5 hours. Oh no, there's 2 of them. 2 of them there. It's 4. These are both from yesterday. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have it. Pretty sure I have it. Okay, but there we go. Jump, Ronald. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Yeah, it'd be nice to get that that streak back going again. And soon Velociraptor is going to be able to gift Save the World skins to your friends for free. Ah. Yeah, like for the actual Fortnite thing, or you use them in Save the World, right? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Okay, you know, I actually need to AFK for like 2 minutes. This book is a little longer than I thought.
Shadow
Oh my lord!
Sent 20 embers with the message Ember.
With the message Ember. Nice. Well, thank you, Shadowtronics. Very nice. Thank you, Shadowtronics too. By the way, for being you were like right on the ball when Channel 1 came rolling on in there. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for that. That was a great help. Yeah. Okay. Very good. And that, I think that's Mike's favorite command. All right. I'm so glad Mike doesn't have access to the other one. This one. If Mike's dentures had access to this, we'd all be in trouble. You had to AFK for it? No, it's all good. No, you were there, right as the, yeah, like right in the middle of that. So that worked out well. All right. Very good. I can just imagine Mike's dentures just breathing deeply, savoring it. Not good, not good. Okay, I'm going to. Oh, can you trigger the boss now? You and Lady can trigger the boss fights now too, right, Shadowtronics? Okay, right. Cool. And there's more. There's a more command. Oh yeah. There's well, actually, yeah. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to AFK for just a minute. AFK for just a minute. I drank too much coffee and water, so I'm going to be right back. Right back. BRB. There we go, much better. All right. Oh, I need a headset. I need my headset on. Actually, you know what? I should get in the habit of doing a clip. I should do a clip every time someone does a channel sub. That way I can, because it's right there. Oh, actually, you know what? That's not going to get the chat message popping up, though. So maybe that wouldn't work after all. I don't know. Yeah, I'll think of something. Okay. Let us do it. Let's see. Okay. Very good. Yeah. We'll get Backward Lion all sorted out. It sucks to lose your streak like that. Okay, so everyone's up to speed with the thing here with the Edgar Allan. Not Edgar Allan Poe. We'll talk about Edgar Allan Poe after we're done with this. We still got 2 more parts to go in this. This is a bit longer than I thought. Bonus book club. I like it. We'll take care of it. Yeah, nice. So here we go. Let's continue with our story. Yeah, this is definitely a serial of some kind. Has to be a serial. Just because every chapter starts off with a big recap. 6. The Tomb Legions. When Dr. Herbert West disappeared a year ago, the Boston police questioned me closely. They suspected that I was holding something back, and perhaps suspected graver things. But I could not tell them the truth, because they would not have believed it. They knew, indeed, that West had been connected with activities beyond the credence of ordinary men, for his hideous experiments in the reanimation of dead bodies had long been too extensive to admit of perfect secrecy. But the final soul-shattering catastrophe held elements of demoniac fantasy, which make even me doubt the reality of what I saw. Nick of the Living Dead. Well, it sounds like this story is going to be right up your alley, my friend. We're 2 hours into it. Yeah, if that's what you're on about. Yeah, we're reading Herbert West, Reanimator. H.P. Lovecraft. I was West's closest friend and only confidential assistant. We had met years before in medical school, and from the first I had shared his terrible researches. He had slowly tried to perfect a solution which, injected into the veins of the newly deceased, would restore life. A labor demanding an abundance of fresh corpses, and therefore involving the most unnatural actions. Still more shocking were the products of some of the experiments, grisly masses of flesh that had been dead. But that West waked to a blind... But that West waked to a blind, brainless, nauseous animation. These were the usual results, for in order to reawaken the mind it was necessary to have specimens so absolutely fresh that no decay could possibly affect the delicate brain cells. This need for very fresh corpses had been West's moral undoing. They were hard to get, and one awful day he had secured his specimen while it was still alive and vigorous. A struggle, a needle, and a powerful alkaloid had transformed it to a very fresh corpse, and the experiment had succeeded for a brief and memorable moment. But West had emerged with a soul calloused and seared, and a hardened eye which sometimes glanced with a kind of hideous and calculating appraisal at men of especially sensitive brain and especially vigorous physique. Toward the last I became acutely afraid of West, for he began to look at me that way. People did not seem to notice his glances, but they noticed my fear, and after his disappearance used that as a basis for some absurd suspicions. West, in reality, was more afraid than I, for his abominable pursuits entailed a life of furtiveness and dread of every shadow. Partly it was the police he feared. But sometimes his nervousness was deeper and more nebulous, touching on certain indescribable things into which he had injected a morbid life, and from which he had not seen that life depart. He usually finished his experiments with a revolver, but a few times he had not been quick enough. There was that first specimen on whose rifled grave marks of clawing were later seen. There was also that Arkham professor's body, which had done cannibal things before it had been captured and thrust unidentified into a madhouse cell at Sefton, where it beat the walls for 16 years. Most of the other possibly surviving results were things less easy to speak of, for in later years West's scientific zeal had degenerated to an unhealthy and fantastic mania, and he had spent his chief skill in vitalizing not entire human bodies, but isolated parts of bodies, or parts joined to organic matter other than human. It had become fiendishly disgusting by the time he disappeared. Many of the experiments could not even be hinted at in print. The Great War, through which both of us served as surgeons, had intensified this side of West. In saying that West's fear of his specimens were nebulous, I have in mind particularly its complex nature. Part of it came merely from knowing of the existence of such nameless monsters, while another part arose from apprehension of the bodily harm they might, under certain circumstances, do him. Their disappearance added horror to the situation. Of them all, West knew the whereabouts of only one, the pitiful asylum thing. Then there was a more subtle fear, a very fantastic sensation resulting from a curious experiment in the Canadian Army in 1915. West, in the midst of a severe battle, had reanimated Major Sir Eric Morland Clapham Lee, DSO, a fellow physician who knew about his experiments and could have duplicated them. The head had been removed, so that the possibilities of quasi-intelligent life in the trunk might be investigated. Just as the building was wiped out by a German shell, there had been a success. The trunk had moved intelligently, and, unbelievable to relate, we were both sickeningly sure that articulate sounds had come from the detached head as it lay in a shadowy corner of the laboratory. The shell had been merciful, in a way, but West could never feel as certain as he wished that we two were the only survivors. He used to make shuddering conjectures about the possible actions of a headless physician with the power of reanimating the dead. West's last quarters were in a venerable house of much elegance, overlooking one of the oldest burying grounds in Boston. He had chosen the place for purely symbolic and fantastically aesthetic reasons, since most of the interments were of the colonial period, and therefore of little use to a scientist seeking very fresh bodies. The laboratory was in a sub-cellar secretly constructed by imported workmen and contained a huge incinerator for the quiet and complete disposal of such bodies, or fragments and synthetic mockeries of bodies, as might remain from the morbid experiments and unhallowed amusements of the owner. To Big Ant Leader, what's up? During the excavation of this cellar, the workmen had struck some exceedingly ancient masonry, undoubtedly connected with the old burying ground, yet far too deep to correspond with any known sepulchre therein. After a number of calculations, West decided that it represented some secret chamber beneath the tomb of the Averils, where the last interment had been made in 1768. I was with him when he studied the nitrous-dripping walls laid bare by the spades and mattocks of the men, and was prepared for the gruesome thrill which would attend the uncovering of centuried grave secrets. But for the first time, West's new timidity conquered his natural curiosity, and he betrayed his degenerating fiber by ordering the masonry left intact and plastered over. Sup, Donsky? What up? Thus it remained till that final hellish night, part of the walls of the secret laboratory. I speak of West's decadence, but must add that it was a purely mental and intangible thing. Outwardly, he was the same to the last. Calm, cold, slight, and yellow-haired, with spectacled blue eyes, and a general aspect of youth, which years and fears never seemed to change. He seemed calm even when he thought of that clawed grave and looked over his shoulder, even when he thought of the carnivorous thing that gnawed and pawed at Sefton bars. The end of Herbert West began one evening in our joint study when he was dividing his curious glance between the newspaper and me. A strange headline item had struck at him from the crumpled pages, and a nameless titan claw had seemed to reach down through 16 years. Something fearsome and incredible had happened at Sefton Asylum, 50 miles away, stunning the neighborhood and baffling the police. In the small hours of the morning, a body of silent men had entered the grounds, and their leader had aroused the attendants. He was a menacing military figure who talked without moving his lips, and whose voice seemed almost ventriloquially connected with an immense black case he carried. His expressionless face was handsome to the point of radiant beauty, but had shocked the superintendent when the hall light fell on it, for it was a wax face with eyes of painted glass. Some nameless accident had befallen this man. A larger man guided his steps, a repellent hulk whose bluish face seemed half eaten away by some unknown malady. The speaker had asked for the custody of the cannibal monster committed from Arkham 16 years before, and upon being refused, gave a signal which precipitated a shocking riot. The fiends had beaten, trampled, and bitten every attendant who did not flee, killing 4 and finally succeeding in the liberation of the monster. Those victims who could recall the event without hysteria swore that the creatures had acted less like men than like unthinkable automata guided by the wax-faced leader. By the time help could be summoned, every trace of the men and of their mad charge had vanished. Is up there, Big Baloney Tony? From the hour... Why is it Big Baloney Tony 03? From the hour of reading this item until midnight, West sat almost paralyzed. At midnight, the doorbell rang, startling him fearfully. All the servants were asleep in the attic, so I answered the bell. As I have told the police, there was no wagon in the street, but only a group of strange-looking figures bearing a large square box, which they deposited in the hallway after one of them had grunted in a highly unnatural voice, "Express, prepaid." They filed out of the house with a jerky tread, and as I watched them go, I had an odd idea that they were turning toward the ancient cemetery on which the back of the house abutted. When I slammed the door after them, West came downstairs and looked at the box. It was about 2 feet square, and bore West's correct name and present address. It also bore the inscription, "From Eric Morland Clapham Lee, St. Eloi, Flanders." 6 years before, in Flanders, a shelled hospital had fallen upon the headless reanimated trunk of Dr. Clapham Lee, and upon the detached head which, perhaps, had uttered articulate sounds. West was not even excited now. His condition was more ghastly. Quickly he said, "It's the finish, but let's incinerate this." We carried the thing down to the laboratory, listening. I do not remember many particulars. You can imagine my state of mind, but it is a vicious lie to say it was Herbert West's body which I put into the incinerator. We both inserted the whole unopened wooden box, closed the door, and started the electricity. Nor did any sound come from the box after all. It was West who first noticed the falling plaster on that part of the wall where the ancient tomb masonry had been covered up. I was going to run, but he stopped me. Then I saw a small black aperture, felt a ghoulish wind of ice, and smelled the charnel bowels of a putrescent earth. There was no sound, but just then the electric lights went out, and I saw outlined against some phosphorescence of the netherworld a horde of silent, toiling things which only insanity, or worse, could create. Their outlines were human, semi-human, fractionally human, and not human at all. The horde was grotesquely heterogeneous. They were removing the stones quietly, one by one, from the centuried wall. And then, as the breach became large enough, they came out into the laboratory in single file, led by a stalking thing with a beautiful head made of wax. A sort of mad-eyed monstrosity behind the leader seized on Herbert West. West did not resist or utter a sound. Then they all sprang at him and tore him to pieces before my eyes, bearing the fragments away into that subterranean vault of fabulous abominations. West's head was carried off by the wax-headed leader, who wore a Canadian officer's uniform. As it disappeared, I saw that the blue eyes behind the spectacles were hideously blazing with their first touch of frantic, visible emotion. Servants found me unconscious in the morning. West was gone. The incinerator contained only unidentifiable ashes. Detectives have questioned me. But what can I say? The Sefton tragedy they will not connect with West. Not that, nor the men with the box, whose existence they deny. I told them of the vault, and they pointed to the unbroken plaster wall, and laughed. So I told them no more. They imply that I am a madman, or a murderer. Probably I am mad. But I might not be mad if those cursed tomb legions had not been so silent. Well, there we go. Wow. Andy Roundhead. How you doing, man? Andy Roundhead coming on in. How you been keeping? Good to see you again. Okay, but anyway, that brings us to the end of, well, actually, no, it doesn't bring us to the end of book club, so we still have to go over our Edgar Allan Poe experiment. That's right, says Shadowtronics, you don't screw with the dead. Whatever you do, let the dead lie. Leave them where they are. Don't go reanimating them. Anyway, that was pretty good. It was a bit longer than I thought. Yeah, man, I wouldn't mind actually recording that whole thing. Actually, very cool. I like it. I like that one a lot. Cool. All right. So that was Reanimator. Herbert West. Reanimator by H.P. Lovecraft. Split into 6 parts. I think it's pretty clear. It must have been serialized. I like that. I like that. Indeed, I do. But yeah, that's that's the end of that part of the book club. We still need to talk a little bit about the Edgar Allan Poe experiment, which is our creative writing thing. I'm falling off the edge of my camera. Which is the creative writing. I'm still falling off. Good lord. The creative writing experiment that we're doing there. So I think and this is, I'm sure most people have already heard this a zillion times, but this is for the benefit of the people who might be new to the channel. Edgar Allan Poe had a birthday recently, about a month ago, and we read several of his stories. One of them was unfinished, The Lighthouse, because he died. It happens. So we were like, you know what, let us continue his story. So we have several creative writers in our book club crew here, and several of them have taken it upon themselves to, independently of each other, to do their own thing, continue The Lighthouse. And we're just going to see how it turns out. Continue it and finish it. 2 weeks from today is the big day. And we will be reading whatever has been written by you all. So yeah, hopefully we're going to get some good stories out of it. I think we will. I think we're going to get some great stories out of it. I'm going to close by reading The Lighthouse, just in case anyone's wondering how it all works and the like. I mean, it's very simple. Edgar Allan Poe set up a situation here, hinted at a couple of different things, and basically died. So yeah, I mean, it's there's not a lot to go on, so you can take it pretty much anywhere. One of the first things I was asked was like, what if I don't know how to write like Edgar Allan Poe? Well, that doesn't matter. You don't have to write like Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, you don't have to like literally pick up exactly where he left off and emulate his style or whatever. You can, however you want to do it. It's creative writing. Yeah, it's not copycat writing. Creative writing. It doesn't even have to be set in the same time period. Maybe some other person's like picked up his volume 200 years later and is like, interesting. And then the story picks up from there. I don't know. Could be anything. But anyway, that's what we're good. Oh, yeah. So on the Sunday, February 23rd. That's when I read them all. And I'm going to be in a co-stream with Art by Galen, and Mr. Art by Galen will be speed sketching and illustrating your story as it happens. So while I'm reading it live, narrating it, he's going to be live, trying to keep up best he can, trying to sketch out what's happening. It's going to be great. It's going to be an awesome co-stream. And if you're a bit of a creative writer there, I think you'll have a good time with it. Now, there he is. That's the dude right there. Why do I have 2 overlays popping up like that? Don't know. I don't know. All right. Yeah, I need to fix up a couple of things. Yes, I do. Anyway, we're going to end. We'll just quickly read. Let me pull up my thing here. What is it? Poe. Is it right here? We're just going to read it. I don't know if, let's see, I think there's like 4 or 5 people have confirmed that they're actually writing on it. Yeah. But here we go. We're just going to read The Lighthouse. It's only like 4 pages long because he died. Your favorite movie is, you're talking about the 2019's The Lighthouse? Yeah, it's supposed to be very good. I have not seen it yet, but it's supposed to be very, very good. I don't think this book is related. It's up there, Sleep Runner. What's going on? You're catching us right as we're rounding up. I'm just we just finished a 2.5 hour book read of something we've never done before. Herbert West, Reanimator. That was really good, really good. I liked it a lot. You're doing well. That's good to hear. Very cool. So what we are doing here is lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, it was going to catch up with, so I've just been briefing everyone on the, our creative writing project, the Edgar Allan Poe experiment. So in case anyone was wanting to hop on to continue and complete this story by Edgar Allan Poe. It doesn't have to be long. But yeah, I will be reading what everyone has written 2 weeks from today. It's going to be an amazing co-stream. Amazing co-stream. So here we go. How would you finish this story? That's the question. The Lighthouse. January 1, 1796. This day, my first on the Lighthouse, I make this entry in my diary, as agreed on with de Great. As regularly as I can keep the journal, I will. But there is no telling what may happen to a man all alone as I am. I may get sick, or worse. So far, well. The cutter had a narrow escape, but why dwell on that, since I am here, all safe? My spirits are beginning to revive already, at the mere thought of being, for once in my life at least, thoroughly alone. For, of course, Neptune, as large as he is not to be taken into consideration as society. Would to heaven I had ever found in society one half as much faith as in this poor dog. In such case, I and society might never have parted, even for the year. What most surprises me is the difficulty de Great had in getting me the appointment, and I, a noble of the realm. It could not be that the consistory had any doubt of my ability to manage the light. One man had attended it before now, and got on quite as well as the 3 that are usually put in. The duty is a mere nothing, and the printed instructions are as plain as possible. It would never have done to let Ordnov accompany me. I never should have made any way with my book, as long as he was within reach of me, with his intolerable gossip, not to mention that everlasting meerschaum pipe. Besides, I wish to be alone. It is strange that I never observed until this moment how dreary a sound that word has. Alone. I could half fancy there was some peculiarity in the echo of these cylindrical walls. But, oh no, this is all nonsense. I do believe I'm going to get nervous about my insulation. That will never do. I have not forgotten the Great's prophecy. Now for a scramble to the lantern and a good look around to see what I can see. To see what I can see, indeed. Not very much. The swell is subsiding a little, I think, but the cutter will have a rough passage home, nevertheless. She will hardly get within sight of the Norland before noon tomorrow, and yet it can hardly be more than 190 or 200 miles. January 2. I have passed this day in a species of ecstasy that I find impossible to describe. My passion for solitude could scarcely have been more thoroughly gratified. I do not say satisfied, for I believe I should never be satiated with such delight as I have experienced today. The wind lulled about daybreak, and by the afternoon the sea had gone down materially. Nothing to be seen, with a telescope even, but ocean and sky, with an occasional gull. January 3. A dead calm all day. Towards evening, the sea looked very much like glass. A few seaweeds came in sight, but besides them absolutely nothing all day, not even the slightest speck of cloud. Occupied myself in exploring the lighthouse. It is a very lofty one, as I find to my cost when I have to ascend its interminable stairs. Not quite 160 feet, I should say, from the low water mark to the top of the lantern. From the bottom inside the shaft, however, the distance to the from the bottom inside the shaft, however, the distance to the summit is 180 feet at least. Thus the floor is 20 feet below the surface of the sea, even at low tide. It seems to me that the hollow interior at the bottom should have been filled in with solid masonry. Undoubtedly the hole would have been thus rendered more safe. But what am I thinking about? A structure such as this is safe enough under any circumstances. I should feel myself secure in it during the fiercest hurricane that ever raged. And yet I have heard seamen say occasionally, with a wind at southwest, the sea has been known to run higher here than anywhere, with the single exception of the western opening of the Straits of Magellan. No mere sea, though, could accomplish anything with this solid iron-riveted wall, which, at 50 feet from high water mark, is 4 feet thick, if 1 inch. The basis on which the structure rests seems to me to be chalk. January 4. Here the manuscript fragment ends. And that is where you continue. Anyway, I have basic instructions in my Discord, as well as a copy of the text. And it's pretty straightforward. Just if you think you're a bit of a creative writer, you want to get involved with this, it's still 2 weeks, to get something in. Yeah, how do you see this story continuing? There's all kinds of little things that they hint at there, you know, like I mean, who is this de Great? I don't know. What is this consistory up to? Is that relevant? I don't know. What is this book which he's trying to write? Who is Ordnoff, the chain-smoking gossip monger? Why is there something weird with the echoes? Why is there a hollowed-out basement 20 feet below the surface? Why is the lighthouse built on a base of chalk? Don't know. Some things to think about, that's for sure. You wonder if they do stuff like this at schools? I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been in one. I'll tell you that much. But anyway, that is where we are at. And that brings us to, two and a half hours of book club. 2 hours, 40 minutes. Woo, that was a lot of reading. Lot of reading. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, if you're interested yourself there, Sleep Runner, more than welcome to give it a crack. It's going to be great. Yeah, 2 weeks from now, I'll be reading what everyone has written. It's gonna be awesome. And like I said, Art by Galen will be in a co-stream with me, and Art by Galen will be illustrating scenes from what people have written. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be very cool. But that does bring us to the end of book club. Yeah, it does. So, without further ado, it's time to say goodbye. Actually, here we go. I can do my new little scene here. Roll one of these bad boy. Roll. There we go. Do one of these. Time to say goodbye. Thank you for the new followers. Thank you for all the hosts. Thank you for spending part of your afternoon with us here. Very good. I'll be back a little later in the evening. We're going to get some gaming on and the like. But for now, we need to bid adieu. We're going to take care of a few things around here. So let's just, we're a little, this is my new little thing here. I need to get some music playing with this or something. It should be cool. We used to have something like that. You're the best, it says. Because you are. Because you are. Top chatters. Who we got? Lagia Zone with 13. Mike Stenches, 13. Chris Alberti, 12. Helga, myself, 10. That must have been bot as a bot. Tallish Birch, 10. Backward Lion, 5. Sleep Runner, 5. And Armani, 4. But still with us. Top mod chatters. I need to do it so it doesn't do my VO bot or hype bot. Top Shadowtronics, dropping embers like a champ. Thank you. Top Spud Stool, Tallish Birch. Wow, 43,700 embers. That's a lot. Chris Alberti, 11,000. Oh, yeah, there we go. Look at these people throwing down some sparks because they like the channel. I appreciate them all. Thank you so much for all of those. Top stickers. I'm still waiting to hear back from my commissioned sticker maker. Come on, there we go. Let's do it. Let's get some more of these top emotes. Yeah, okay. That's something that's a work in progress there as well. And some good new followers. That's what, 2. The stated Tomcat, the Spender, Eric Bojo, Phoenix Liger, Nick of the Living Dead. I bet he liked all this stuff. King of Babes. I wish I was that lucky. Shibo Kuma, the Big Ant Leader. Bunch of hosts like them too. A new subscriber, Sega Fear. That was weird. He didn't say anything either. He just came in, threw down a sub, and I imagine he's just having a good time right now. And people who gained some levels. Look at all this interesting stuff. Yeah. There's no way I can read this in time, that's for sure. But wow, okay. A lot of people leveled up, looks like. Yeah, that player progression is a pretty interesting thing here. I bet all of these are from the channel 1. I bet they came in. They all most of them just leveled up by being in the channel for a few minutes. I bet that's how that happened. This is probably going to go on and on and on and on and on. And that's okay. Let me just open up another window here real fast. What is... take a quick look at this. And so I believe I have this now set up. So on my Patreon, if I click on this, does it go live? Yeah, it does. All right. I bet that's how. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. So now I have yeah, I have it set up so the a live feed goes straight over to my Patreon page as well. Alrighty, that'll be very handy, very handy. It does. It's going to keep on going, keep on rolling, rolling, rolling. There's a sleep runner right at the very end there. How about that? Very cool. All right. Well, that's a pretty fun little gimmick. I can't get the new raid thing to work, by the way. I tried getting that all done, but nothing happened on that. See you next time. It says, yeah, I'll be back later tonight. But yeah, I got to take care of a few things around the house right now. So you have a great time. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us here. I've enjoyed having you. I've enjoyed reading you all some stories. All right, I'll catch. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everyone. Thank you again, Shadowtronics, for the great mod work.